Building a homestead isn't easy, and it comes with many challenges. We've been learning as we go since coming into this project, very inexperienced, and it's been 3.5 years, and each year we've added to the property, all while slowly developing a plan for our future home on the property. Building a homestead in reverse may be very strange to some, but I'm going to explain as we go so that you'll know what it is I'm referring to. It's been an incredible experience so far building up this homestead, and small farm life is the kind of life that we should have been living all along. We have a bunch of different animals on the farm now. We've been slowly developing the structure and the design where we're going to put all these animal enclosures, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's been putting my skills to the test. Beautiful day on the farm. Beautiful and sunny in the winter means it's extremely cold. It's minus 16 Celsius today. That's not that bad. I've seen worse. 3.5 years on this property now. 3.5 years. Can you imagine how fast the time flies when you're having fun, eh? That's really a true enough saying. This property is 90 acres, and we basically bought it in an attempt to shift our life's priorities from city living into the rural lifestyle. And I truly feel like this is the life that I should have been living all along. And my parents weren't farm people by any means. They didn't know anything about building. They didn't know anything about farming, anything about growing. So there was none of that to be passed on to us kids. I've learned all this stuff in the past few years. Yes, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm loving every minute of it, and I would not change a thing. Some might think that this is not a real homestead because we don't live here, but honestly, it's just a descriptive term I use. It could be a farmstead, it could be a small farm, homestead, rural living. But my wife and I still, in fact, work for a living. There's no way we could afford all this without working for a living. This is the Century Farmhouse. It was built in 1915. We rent this out as a farm stay short-term rental for families and people to come, relax, recharge from the city, and have a small farm life type experience. So we don't live on the property yet. This is the key point. Yet. I'll get into that a little bit later though. Let me just explain some of the things that we're doing so far that have helped us develop this property into our future homestead. Now the land itself wasn't completely vacant. Like I said, there was this 100-year-old house, and there's this very antique barn and a really old kind of small barn or a workshop type thing. But that was it. We knew that first summer that we were going to be getting ducks and chickens onto the farm. And we did just that, ducks and chickens, and we kept them in the barn, and they were living, an indoor life in the barn because we had no way of free-ranging them at that point. But that's when I started coming up with the design idea for the Ducky Bunkie, which is our duck house. Because we're developing this property into a farm stay short-term rental business, I knew that I wanted to build kind of odd, unique looking structures because it'll just make the place that much more fun for the guest experience. So I started building this A-frame, kind of a bunkie style duck house. Honestly, it wasn't that difficult to build. I do all my building by myself, and I just took my time. The hardest thing was setting up the roof rafters because they're just such a tall peak. But I did what I could do, and it turned out really nice. I gave them a 30-foot run so that they could have access to outside and they could have access to their house. And basically, they can breathe some fresh air even though I wasn't free-ranging them as yet. But I also knew that I was going to be planting a miniature orchard. And when I say a mini orchard, basically it consists, as of today, of 44 trees. There are 5 really old apple trees that were already existing, and I continued to develop the entire area into a mini orchard. and we've planted a few more apple trees, a bunch of cherry trees, plum trees, pear trees, and we planted some walnuts and some chestnuts and peach. So basically, we also integrated some honey locust trees, which is a nitrogen fixing tree, and that will assist us in encouraging the permaculture aspect of this orchard area. And the setup that we have now is that we've fenced off a little section of the orchard. We basically get the ducks rumbling in the morning, and they march out like a little duck parade out into the orchard. And we have a few guard geese that we hatched out a couple years ago, and they basically stay in the orchard with the ducks, and they act as kind of guards for the ducks, because geese are very loud. Maybe hawks and some aerial predators, maybe some small predators like fox or raccoons. They're not going to bother with the ducks because those geese are there. But I also needed to build the geese their own house, so I built them a goose caboose. And a goose caboose is just a play on words. It rhymes, it's fun, it's nice color in the orchard, and the kids really get a kick out of it who are staying here at the farm. So the geese live out their days in the goose caboose. They also have a run, so they have always access to their food and water. I often get asked in the comments and from emails from people where I acquired my skills to build things. And when I say the word skills, believe me, I use the term very loosely. Now, to make a long story short, because I could talk for hours and hours about this stuff, when my wife and I were first married in the early 90s, we got our first house, and it was like a tear-down kind of house, I put so much work and effort into that house in fixing it up. And you know where I gained all the skills to do that? From HGTV, Home and Garden Television. I also had a whole set of books from Home Depot, and anything that I didn't know how to do, I basically looked it up in these books. You also have to understand that YouTube didn't exist back then, so you couldn't just Google something and then watch some YouTube videos about. But once you understand how to use the tools and how to design things, the rest is kind of creativity. And that's very similar to how I've been developing my skills from day one, using hand tools, upgrading and acquiring some power tools, power saws, then you upgrade to a miter saw and a fancy table saw, and now I have like tens of thousands of dollars worth of tools that I've acquired over my life, and I know how to use every single one of them. This is an often overlooked aspect of homesteading. If you want to just say to yourself, hey, I'm going to go get a homestead and I'm going to build my own house and start living a self-sustainable lifestyle. Are you really going to do that? Are you really going to start living a self-sustainable lifestyle? Everybody has to work for a living. There's no possible way you can just grow some food, raise some animals, and then you live. Everybody's got property taxes to pay. You can't get away from that. So everybody needs to work for a living and earn some kind of money. And also, who's going to do the work for you, right? Are you going to be able to have the skills or develop the skills to build whatever it is you want to build to become self-sufficient? We just had a litter of Juliana piglets and they're all doing great. A little bit of a surprise, but you know how it goes. We welcome all new life here on the farm, and they're surviving, so that's a good sign. I think one of the best ways to learn how to do all this stuff is by actually attempting to do it. Nobody ever got anything done by not trying, right? And I've made so many countless mistakes doing all my building and developing things and trying to think of where I want to put that house, where the chicken house, do I want to cut those trees and branches? Unbelievable the amount of mistakes I made, but you know what? I don't care. I don't care if people want to correct me. I don't care if they don't agree with me, because what I know is that I'm going to keep working and keep trying until I get it right. As an example, Molly, she's our eldest Old English sheepdog. Look at her. She's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And basically, she's been living her whole life here on the farm. She's made a lot of great friends with a lot of the animals. That one there's Olive. Olive is adopted. She was given to us by one of you YouTube viewers, and she drove up from Ohio. There's a whole long story about it, but we have Molly and Olive. Both dogs are amazing. They're both purebred Old English sheepdogs, which you don't see a lot of. I don't know anything about training dogs, but I slowly did my own thing, introduced these dogs to all the animals from a young age, and guess what? I am 100% confident that both Molly and Olive will not hurt one of the animals that we have on the farm. Not even the baby chicks and the baby ducks and the baby rabbits and the baby pigs. No, they will not, because they're just trained. And I'm not bragging that I know how to train. I'm just saying I did it. Whether or not I know how to do it, I still did it. A lot of people might be timid or scared to try to build things. Look at this structure that I built. 7 coops in there. But I said, you know what? I'm going to start slow. I'm going to work out the shape and go from the ground up and figure it out as I go. And it took me really 2 years to finish it. And now it's finished and I love it. And it's cool and you guys love it and everybody's happy. So that's basically one of my mantras here at the farm. You have to dream it up and then you have to build it. And if you don't know how to build it anyway. That's important, to try things, because if you don't try, you're never gonna succeed. Now we do a lot of the things that a normal homesteader would do, I think. This is the 100-foot garden. This is what it looks like in the winter. But we basically built this garden starting the first year, and we've been developing it year over year, and it's been a challenge trying to better the soil and make some raised beds and make our gardening experience more fun, because you don't want it to become work. But last summer was the absolute best year we've had so far in our growing season. We all together grew $1,700 worth of groceries, and it was just incredible. We grew a wide range of vegetables. It was really fun, really exciting season to watch these things grow. It was the first time that my darling was actually able to do some pasta sauce, because we actually had a lot of tomatoes. So she canned, I believe it was 19 jars, like big jars of pasta sauce. It was incredible, and I'm very happy at the direction that our gardening is going. That's a whole other thing, eh? Learning how to garden, learning the different aspects of permaculture and soil conditions and composting, and what plants grow well together and what don't, what works, what doesn't work. You know, we planted a whole field of corn out there last year and none of it grew at all. But I'm going to plant corn again this year, and I'm going to try to figure out what I did wrong. We also have raised animals for meat. We've done a whole bunch of meat chickens and a whole bunch of meat ducks. And there's nothing fresher tasting than a homegrown chicken, let me tell you. It's nothing like it is at the grocery store. There's no additives, no antibiotics, no preservatives. They don't inject it with steroids. At the grocery level, they don't inject it with water, because you know why? Ours is just all natural organic meat. Got loads of eggs from the ducks and the chickens too. We haven't bought eggs in like 3 years. We also built our own little blueberry patch, and last summer was the first summer that we were able to harvest some actual blueberries. It was very cool, very sweet tasting berries, and I couldn't be happier. Another big aspect of homesteading or small farm life is basically rodent control. It's not really something that we think about on a daily basis, but we've decided to use working barn cats as our main rodent control here at the farm, and it's been working out really great for us. And let me tell you, these cats have just taken over my heart, and I don't know, I feel like I should have owned a cat all my life. They wander around the farm, they hunt for rodents, and they're good friends. Sometimes they follow me around the farm, and they make for some great companionship, and I do worry about them, so I built them a catio, and they're protected at night, and I have a whole system where I call them at the end of the afternoon and try to get them all back at the end so that they'll be locked up at night. and we have this cat house slash workshop type thing. I actually spent the last 4 or 5 months of last year building this new little workshop for myself. But I built it because the barn cats had taken over the old workshop, and I just really needed my own space. And now I'm going to be transforming this old workshop into a new cat cave or like a cat house type thing. I think there's historically a lot of misconception about the homesteading life. And what I mean to say is, we were always led to believe growing up that homesteading was like a frugal lifestyle, was like a way for poor people to live, Because of the homesteading small farming community on YouTube, it's really helping to broaden the public's horizons, To give so many examples that homesteading is not about saving money all the time. It can be, but it's not all the time. It's not about living a cheap or a poor lifestyle. Now, I'm only speaking from our own ideas here. I can't speak for others, but for me, this kind of a lifestyle is what I choose. I'm not doing it to save money. Now, saving money might be like a domino effect of what we're doing, becoming self-sufficient and endeavoring to get there, but it's not really the end goal. Now, this house here is an old house, okay? It's not insulated. It's got bugs all throughout because you can't keep the bugs out. It's got mice all the time. You're always dealing with drafts because it's not insulated. It's not heated properly. It's just an old double brick style. So the God's honest truth is that my darling and I do not want to live in this kind of a house, okay? We feel like we've earned the right to live comfortably, and I'm honestly not shy to talk about that, take it for what it is. That's why we decided to rent this out as a short-term rental. But we do want to build our house somewhere on the property, somewhere up there, way up there. I got a spot picked out, but ideally, that's what we're doing. We are definitely accustomed to certain modern amenities, even though we are endeavoring to become self-sufficient and homestead and farmstead and all the good things that go along with that. But that house, in my opinion, is good for a stay. It's good for a visit, for a month, for 2 months, for 2 weeks, for 2 days. It's all good for that. But to actually live in full time, I'm really not trying to sound prude or braggart, because I don't want to seem like I'm coming across as I'm too good to live in that kind of a house. I'm not trying to make it that I'm too good for that house. I'm trying to just be honest with you guys and explain that work too hard to downgrade into a 100-year-old house. Some people, maybe they're okay with it. I don't know. I'm not okay with it. I want to sit in a nice recliner and watch my big screen TV. You know what I'm saying? I like movies. I really like movies. I want to be able to sit there in my recliner, my lazy boy, and have my dogs sitting by my feet and watch my big screen TV, So you can't do that in that house. I don't know. I don't want you guys get the wrong idea, but I'm just trying to explain as to all these things play into our thinking as to why we decided to start setting up this entire farmstead even before we're living here. Usually when people find a vacant land and they've decided that they're gonna start building their homestead from scratch, the first thing they're doing is maybe building a driveway, maybe getting electricity to the property, and then they're starting to build their house. And that's all fine and good. There's countless and countless YouTube channels now that are all about building your homestead from scratch. I've seen dozens of homestead channels that don't even have a homestead yet. I was watching one the other day. It was a guy in Canada, and all he was doing was starting to build like a log house. Maybe it will become a homestead. He's endeavoring to build a homestead, but the first thing he's doing is building a home. So that's why I'm talking, we are doing it in reverse, which might seem odd to some people, but it's not odd to us. As it is right now, our house is exactly 18 minutes down the road. So I come here multiple times a day. Sometimes I stay here all day when I'm not working, and I'm basically doing, like today, it's like a weekend. I'm filming all day. I'm doing animal chores and stuff like that. But it does add a little bit of an extra item onto your day's task, So it's like, okay, I'm going to go do the chores. You can't just walk out of your house and go do the chores. I got to get in the car, get the dogs, go over to the farm, do all the farm chore stuff. And then if I want, I'm going back home. So there's just that extra 20-minute drive that, you always got to keep in the back of my mind. Very quiet and peaceful. With all the beautiful forest up there. I'm sure it's full of wildlife. You hear the roosters going. You hear the ducks once in a while. And it's so satisfying to be here, in my opinion. And I'm proud at what we're trying to build here. I'm happy that some of you folks are coming along for the ride because, YouTube kind of becomes its own thing, right? It's like I somewhat stress out regularly trying to come up with great stories to share with you guys to keep you guys interested. This is the bunny barn and the rabbit-tat. We just keep the rabbits here for their manure. We use their manure in the garden. It's very cold and very good fertilizer for those veggies. And of course the farm stay guests love them, and I love them too. They're a lot of fun. So more than likely, the way things are going for us here on the farm is that the last thing that we're going to do is build a house for ourselves. That's why I'm saying most people, the first thing they're going to do is build a house for themselves. There's a lot to be said, though, about paying off mortgages and saving up enough money and being financially stable enough to be able to build our dream. Not everyone can build their dream because dreams are expensive. Dreams are expensive. Let me reiterate that. So, gotta take it for what it's worth. Whether you think of us as homesteaders or think of us as farmsteaders or however you want to think of it, it's still a work in progress for us. And there's so many things that we still want to do to develop this property. And I hope that you guys will continue to join us for the ride, follow along on our journey, and continue to like the videos and continue to watch and all those good things that come with following a YouTube channel so that we can continue building on our success. And we really do appreciate you watching, and feel free to leave a comment down below on your thoughts on the video or any feedback. I do really try my best to answer as many comments as I can, but it does become a full-time job after a while, but I try my best, and I really want to get to know you viewers as much as possible, so hope that's okay with y'all.